If you ain't having good times, then you can take the highway. It's Good Times Friday. It's Marfoogle Friday. If you ain't having good times.
All right, I hope everybody's having a good night. Major power outage hits Venezuela's capital with Maduro government blaming sabotage. Maduro is actually saying that this is his enemies in some way screwing with them after multiple states and Caracas, the capital, ended up waking up with no power. When these kind of events happen, understand if somebody is sitting in Ohio watching this and they're going, well, what does this have to do with us? These world events and what is going on with Venezuela, Brazil, what is happening, of course, in Canada, what is happening in, of course, Russia, Ukraine, North Korea, China, all of this is going to affect us. This is all part of something that is all one kind of beast of a event. So Venezuelans, of course, awoke Friday to a major power outage in the capital, Caracas, as several states had no power. President Nicolas Maduro government blamed the outage, which began at 4:50 a.m., on electrical sabotage. Now, remember, the news over the last 4 days is we're talking about this country, but not so much their actual country, the people from their country that have now left and are now somehow setting up shop in Aurora, Colorado. Freddie Nanez, the communications minister, said officials were working to restore power. Nobody will take away our peace and tranquility of the Venezuelan people. Well, not everybody thinks it's actually so peaceful or tranquil there, and that's why so many folks are actually leaving. They say that about 7.7 million have already left in the last few years, and experts say because Maduro ended up getting the spot again, and there's much debate about whether he actually got that spot as the new prez. But as far as that goes, an expert saying that because of that 10 million, up to 10 million more Venezuelans may leave. And we're not talking about like if T-Man gets elected, then I'm leaving the country. We're talking about they think that the conditions are so bad that they are absolutely going to leave. Where do you think that they are going to go? Where do you think that they're going to head? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. At the same time, in the last week, since all of this has been going on, we have crazy numbers of people have been reporting to see all sorts of stuff going down here in the United States. Now, what do you think happens, too, when the people that are on the fence going, maybe I'll stay, then they lose power because of what is going on. And maybe they don't believe the official story they're getting from their gov. So it's kind of crazy when you think about how this would also be an effector to the people there that might just want to leave already. Nanez said in a voice message on Telegram that all 24 of Venezuela's states had been at least partially impacted. He characterized the outage as a desperate attempt by Maduro's opponents to violently oust the prez. So I want to point out that somehow they're saying that his opponents have the power to do this somehow, but who are they actually saying that this is? Are they saying that his opponent and their group basically has somebody that's able to do this kind of thing? It says the entire national government has been activated to overcome this new aggression. Notice that. Again, saying that the entire government has been activated to overcome this. Well, what does that really mean? That means we've basically put everybody on overtime, and they're going to smash this, sabotage to the ground. Anybody who's trying to step up and stand against us, well, we're going to gather the entire government to make sure that doesn't happen. Venezuela in 2019, during a period of political unrest, suffered from regular power outages that the government almost always blamed on its opponents. But the energy experts said that they were a result of brush fires damaging transmission lines and poor maintenance of the country's hydroelectric infrastructure. I don't know what to believe, but of course you guys can let me know what you believe in the comments down below. There is so much more than this. We're going to talk about, of course, China, Russia, and everything else that is going on right now, including, of course, what is happening here in the U.S. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
It's Marfoogle Friday. If you ain't having good times, then you can take the highway.
All right, let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, what do you think that this was opponents? Do you think that this is some sort of Fantastic Freddy to allow them to basically get out the beaten sticks? Like, what is this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, at this point, you've got like half of that nation, if not more, upset about the results. And while it's not like it's just that it's so bad they're going to leave, they're afraid, and there's a lot of initiatives underway from Maduro to go after those people that were doing that. So if you had the opposite opinion, now you may be living in a not just in a leadership that you didn't like, but that leadership may be coming after you and persecuting you. So that's why a lot of people are going to be bolting, they're saying. But so we take that and you layer it in. This country is a mess. They could have been, or they should be, one of the wealthiest nations down there. They've got so much resources with the oil, but they've just not done anything with it. And they've allowed themselves to go through this hyperinflation and everything else. They haven't spent the money to upkeep their power. So we don't know, is this just the power failing, or is it literally somebody doing sabotage against Maduro, as he says? That's his claim. But yeah, it's a mess.
Timing
everything about it's a mess.
The timing is everything. When the timing is fishy, and how many times a day do you say, whoa, the timing of this is just absolutely fishy? Everything in our world right now, it's all about timing. And when the timing is just so convenient, and it's pretty much 4 times a day, you see a story and you're like, wait, that's happening now? It's so obvious. And for somebody to be, I guess, almost brainwashed to not see it, I think is absurd. It's like, how do people not see some of the things that are going on right now? Because somebody with a suit and tie or a website which they say is supposed to be, doing its best job to check every source and everything else, how do they just go, oh, well, they said it's not true, so it's not true. But yet 2 months later it is, time and time again. 18 months later, that's what actually happened, and you continue to believe all of these same sources that say, no, this is actually, bad info or this or that. And then time and time again, it's proven wrong later. Well, guess what? 18 months later, nobody cares because they moved on, or they didn't see the update on it. So they continue 18 months later to, if somebody asked them about that story, they go, oh no, remember they said that was fake. But you go, no, do you remember 2 months ago when it came out that it was real? Nah. And then if they go, okay, well, I'll Google it. And then they go and do it. And of course, what do they see? They see the debunks. They don't see the people that basically put out and said, hey, it's true. It's crazy how controlled information is, but it's also crazy how people are just so oblivious to what is going on around them. And I mean, do you really wonder why? You see a picture of people walking in New York compared to today, compared to 2000. Everybody is like this. Everybody is a zombie. And it is a literal zombie. and we're all guilty of it. We're all on our distraction machines instead of really kind of looking around us. But there's some of us, and I think that most of this community, you just have something that you could be staring at your phone all day and you're still going to see out of the peripheral vision that something is coming. I mean, there are just, I think it almost comes, I don't want to say this, but do you guys think it's IQ? Like if somebody has a low IQ, are they, and that's the crazy part. We've seen a lot of things in social media. They keep posting these funny videos of, you see like 5 people and they do a judgment of like the 5 people look at each other based on how they're dressed and how they talk and everything else. And they say, oh, who's the highest IQ? Well, one video in particular went viral of this girl who has like an MBA. She's got a master's degree or 2 master's degree. And she's talking to this guy who sounds kind of like he's from the South. And they end up, judging each other. And the girl with the master's degree says, well, I think I have the highest IQ and I think that guy has the lowest. When they end up doing it, it's like the guy that's from the South has the highest IQ, and the girl with 2 master's degrees somehow with the lowest possible IQ in the whole room got 2 master's degrees. So that's another reason why nobody really respects these master's degrees and things like from Ivy League schools. When all of us were part of high school, all of us remember the rich kids that they would literally be on Smoker's Corner, probably, slanging stuff, and they would get kicked out of school 50 times. But if their parents were rich, they would pay money to the board and they would get right through. It's like, how do you respect that? So, and now, especially with colleges, how they are, who even believes what's coming out of them? So like with all of this, it's just, I don't know how people are not seeing what's about to happen. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Let's say hello to people. We've got Danielle Woodard. We've got Faith Parent. Hey, M. St. G. Andrew Brown. Dale Jackson. Tracy Q. What is happening? Mega Maniac. What is going on? Rashid. We've got Baron Saturday. Randy Man. Juanita's Review. Nice to see you. Ryan Alter. Once again here. Paul Barbacano. Nice to see you. Richard Warwick. Tony Hamby. Tammy Driver. We've got Blessed. What is that? Blessed Eddies, I think. And then we've got 3 Horses Running, 1 on B, Larry Gatlin, Phildo Young, and then, of course, Jennifer Chamberlain. Jared West, again, thank you for your support over on the other show. I appreciate that. And thank you for the super. All right. Dex, let's go into the judge bans X in Brazil for refusing to comply with demands.
Yeah, this is getting big. They have now censored X from the entire country of Brazil. So the Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandra de Moraes ordered the suspension of Elon Musk's social media platform in Brazil. And it was due to Musk's refusal to appoint a legal representative in the country, despite repeated warnings. I think the prior lawyer had their bank accounts frozen and lots of other things had gone on. But nonetheless, it's not just that they've said, hey, we're going to suspend you here. They went so far as to order a daily fine of an equivalent of $8,900 to any user or a company that uses a VPN to access X from within Brazil. So this is an ongoing battle. And obviously, from Elon's point, he's suggesting that this is a battle against free speech. And just like we saw with other social media platforms, like the Humble CEO was bolting out of Europe right after the Telegram CEO gets arrested in Europe. And now we've got Brazil making a lot of hay around Elon, as well as we got Europe pushing Elon too. So I suspect we'll see more of that even here in the U.S. As the weeks move forward towards that big day that's coming.
Yeah, and as far as those big days, it's getting closer and closer, and we're going to see move after move. It's going to be on a daily basis. Just want to remind people, make sure to sign up for our email list. marfooglenews.com. You can create any email. You can go get yourself, what are the security email things called again? I'm forgetting the name. It's off the tip of my
Proton?
Proton Mail. You can go get yourself a Proton Mail or any other service. You can do a separate email just for our email list, but make sure to keep track of that. I would suggest you make that email for all sorts of channels and sign up for the different notifications and email lists. I would do that sooner than later. All right, and then, of course, you also can get notifications through marfooglenews.com. You go there, it will have a little box in the corner. That way, if we go live on any of the apps, then you will know about it. All right, and it's pretty imperative you do this for all of your favorite people. All right, not just us. And then to further show you kind of some of the stuff that's going on, this is Pavlovsky. Brazil no longer has Rumble, and from media reports, they will no longer have X. World powers don't want the Rumble. They don't want X. They don't want Telegram. They want to, of course, have power over the information, and our companies do not allow them to. So these are big moves happening, and we all called this. Our community, of course, knew this was coming. And, of course, Elon Musk himself, the attacks this year on free speech are unprecedented in the 21st century. It will happen to America, too, if the two folks that are going up against T-Man gain power. Just listen to what they said. Again, all of these tweets and images of all of this will be over on marfooglenews.com. Again, this is just insanity. Anybody using a VPN will be fined up to $8,874 a day. And then U.S. gearing up for an all-out space war with Russia and China. General warns West must be ready for orbital battlefield. Everything we have covered here, all of the framework, we told you that China had these low Earth satellites that could knock out the warning systems of all of our Navy. They claim they have this technology. Now we're hearing from our side that we need to be all out ready for orbital battlefield. Dex, this is exactly what, again, this community has been watching for a very long time, and now they're saying it.
Yeah, certainly. They didn't just build and create Space Force to, stare at space or look through telescopes or maybe launch some cool rockets and have fun. They knew something was coming. And now that they've done it, of course, they knew it was coming, but you also see clearly what the adversaries have done in space too, especially China and especially Russia. I think Russia most peculiar with the desire to take out all of the satellite infrastructure with just one nuke, which I don't know why they keep ignoring the fact of calling it an EMP, but that's exactly what it is. So we've got all of this starting to build out in space, at least from a conflict, or even I guess at some point we're probably going to actually see troops in space. I know right now a lot of it is about technology and managing satellites and probably other types of secret weapon systems that we have that I'm sure are manned remotely from the ground. But I'm envisioning that it won't be much longer until we literally have not just astronauts, but militarized astronauts in space that are on military missions dealing with conflict up there.
And even as of a few years ago, you had at least 3 extremely high up, one of the top people at Space Force, one of the top ranking officials, who was one of the top ranking Air Force officials that ended up getting recruited over, said that there is already a war in place in space. Now, the space war that's going on above our heads, of course, our community has, kind of a why in the road about what they believe is actually going on. But I would say to you, if you don't believe that, then again, also realize if this is all being said, then you probably already know too that they don't do anything without a reason, right? There's always some sort of catch. So understand that there's a catch either way. If there's a real straight up space war above us and China does have the tech that they say they have, we're talking about a potential to have all of a sudden our power go out, our internet communications cut, our underwater sea cables cut, at the same time that multiple wars end up popping off with our military spread out, and we already have millions of people inside of our own country that don't need to paradrop in. You're talking, you don't need D-Day boats if you already have people inside pillboxes on the beach, and it won't be our people. So this is this is something I feel is obvious. I feel like it's just like you don't have to read between the lines. You just have to really ignore in some parts all of just the louder voices that, of course, are all saying the exact same thing. The same voices that coordinate and for 24 hours say the word electric, or, you know, the same ones that say the same paragraph at the beginning of the news. You have to kind of ignore that, and you have to go with your gut. Do you think that nothing's going to happen after we just had an attempt on our former prez after, you know, trying to, now he is a felon? Like, I mean, like, look at what's happening right now. It's things I used to cover in other countries. Now I'm covering in my own. It's very nerve-wracking. It's very very terrifying, to be honest. Let's thank you again, UFO Disclosure TV from yesterday. Appreciate that. Thank you, Meatpup007, Genius by Birth. Thank you guys for the supers. LAPD SWAT, Domenico Lavara, thank you yesterday. Tammy Lee this week. Kat, of course, Trilicit, and Stephen McMahon. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Before we move on, make sure to go check out Energy. If you don't have a backup power supply, it's going to be obviously an extremely helpful thing if we do ever lose our power grid for any reason, to be able to continue as normal. The great part about solar is you don't have to depend on gas. You get yourself some solar panels and you'll be able to have unlimited power as long as the sun comes up. But why we recommend this specific vessel for it is because this is modular and it's expandable. It's as tough as a tank. In fact, this actual Energy Flex Tactical solar generator just won the STTR Phase 2 contract and is heading out with the Army. They pick things not because it takes a selfie or because it's pretty. They pick it because it's reliable, and when they want it to turn on, it turns on. They pick things that are not going to be manipulatable. They're not going to have somebody remotely turn it off. Again, that's why we believe this is going to be the ultimate tool as far as a solar generator. Now, gas-powered generators are great, and if you already have one, there is a reason for solar. You might have 2 barrels of gas, or you might have 10. But most people don't have the ability to even keep a barrel of gas. Most apartments probably have some sort of rule against that. And if you think you're going to go to a gas station, just look at when the East Coast pipeline went down for a matter of, I think it was hours, maybe a day. I don't know how long that was. But people waited at least 5 hours just to get gas. And that was not a giant event compared to losing our entire grid. So this is a big deal. This is an investment. These things are not cheap. They're also not built cheap. They are built some of the best building procedures in the world. It is built with the steel reinforced frame. You, of course, have 1,500-pound latch system. You have heaters built into every battery. So in mid-winter, you can turn this thing on, and those heaters will keep your batteries warm and efficient. So this thing is absolutely a beast. It can be expanded up to 96 batteries. So in that way, this thing is just absolutely awesome. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. You'll save money and you'll help our independent news at the same time. All right, you guys. Again, let's go over to Dex. Street Thug Putin and his allies considering invasion of 3 more countries. Wild.
Yeah, well, here we have yet another one of those articles, of course, given where it's coming from, where they just put all the labels they can on Putin to delabel it instead of calling him street thug, and instead of adding all of the adjectives that they just love to put in. Let me just simplify it. There is a belief, and it's one we've talked about here quite a bit. It's been talked about ad nauseum because of the fact that it logically makes sense that if Putin were to attack or invade another piece of territory, it would be the Baltics. And the reason why that makes sense is to then pinch down into Kaliningrad and take that territory out. It takes out three countries and makes it rather simple. They are suggesting, the folks that are talking about this and that analyze Putin are suggesting that given the state of what is happening in the conflict right now, at least the appearances are that he's backed into a corner. And if he's backed into a corner, he tends to be more extreme. At least that's what the insiders are trying to tell us or warn us about. So they're suggesting that they might see these types of actions and behavior. So I don't understand exactly if this is true or not, because this is coming from obviously an opinion piece on one hand, because they just fill it with all the adjectives about how awful he is. But there is a logical point when you do look at it from a say a geographic standpoint. If that makes a lot of sense for him to actually grab that Baltic area, it gives them more water access in the Baltic Sea there, which is critical, and it also helps connect Kaliningrad up to the mainland. So they're suggesting that's the next front. Of course, none of this means anything until something happens. I think the big challenge we're seeing is whether or not something kinetic happens between Poland and Russia, and if something happens with UK and Russia, because that's probably the most logical first steps between these two. And that may not be on land. It may be on a base or in a territory on another piece of land. I'm not suggesting that Russia is just going to go strike UK on the mainland, but you never know.
And you guys know, as I point out, if something is pointing out, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be Putin. Every time I point this out, it's usually about Putin or either our former prez. When they put these adjectives before it, it's usually because they're giving you an opinion before they even start talking. If you actually look at the title of this, it says everything. Street Thug Putin. If somebody didn't know him from anything, has been living under a rock for 50 years, and then read this, they go, oh, this guy's a street thug. They put these things in, or Mad Vlad, or Desperate Vlad. It gives you an image of somebody begging for money. This person. It's these kind of things are done all the time. They just saw one of T-Man the other day. Perverse former president. They put that in there like he's a pervert or something. Again, who knows what he does in his real life. My point is, when they write like that, that's not unbiased. You're showing a bias before you're even starting the sentence. So my point is, it should be equal all the way across the board. But of course it's not. We all have opinions. Again, and this being an op-ed, it's understandable. But what it's not understandable in is regular pieces of information when they're covering factual news, and they do that. That to me is just wild that's what we accept as news now. And that's why it's good to call out mainstream media. That's why it's good to cover it and question it. Thank you. Kenny Crowder. I was just talking about you the other day when you weren't here. Kenny Crowder, I think, is number 5 or my 8th subscriber. To really put that in perspective, this channel's at 207,000 or something. Kenny Crowder was like in the first 10. That's really crazy to think about. So thank you, Kenny. Thank you. That's just like random to even find a channel and to watch it on a regular basis that you might have been subscribed to in the first like 10 people. That's really cool. Thank you, Kenny. It says, long time Adam Dex mods. I'm still here watching and always will always. Ilea, stay safe, strong, and I love your way. Ilea says, may I please share a YouTube link to a fundraiser for a 4-year-old girl with a brain tumor. Anne's daughter from Ann Lynn's show is live streaming the fundraiser. Conquest Josh is donating hand-painted lures. Ilea, yes. Ilea, I'll leave that up to you. Okay. And you guys will have to fill me in on it. All right. And then let's see here. Let's go into the next one. China makes new demands about U.S. nuclear weapons. China has urged the U.S. to take more serious steps towards reducing its nuclear arsenal and abandon its Cold War mentality after Washington revised its nuclear strategy to focus on the East Asian country. Says, quote, China firmly opposes the U.S. expanding its nuclear arsenal and shirking responsibilities for nuclear disarmament under the pretext of the non-existent China nuclear threat. Again, this is China speaking, and we've heard this over the last 2 weeks. That exact same thing come from China. The South Morning Post, the People's Daily, the Shenzhen Daily, I believe it was, whatever the other one is, they've all put out these pieces stating and making fun of the U.S., essentially saying that, oh yeah, China's the big bad guy. But yet China is hoarding like it's about to take over countries and about to literally go to World War III. And we're supposed to think that they're not doing this? They're building nuclear missiles and silos like we've never seen before. They're trying to be at parity with the U.S. nuclear level in just a few short years, and we're supposed to think that they're not a threat. They already built the largest Navy. They're building the largest Air Force. They have stolen our IP. Their jets, their boats, everything else are basically carbon copies of our crap, and we're supposed to think that China is not a threat. They say the China nuclear threat. I actually do believe they are a threat. And I think that it's crazy for them to even joke about this. But that is their angle. They just deny. Two senior JB administration officials have recently alluded to the revised document titled Nuclear Employment Guidance. The guidance is updated every 4 years and was most recently changed in March with President JB's authorization. Now, we talked about that plan. Dex, do you want to go over kind of, again, but can you remind people of that plan that they just put into place or that leaked, right?
Well, yeah, it leaked. It was more of an update. The main thing was that all of a sudden, instead of being our traditional nuclear doctrine about defense and focus on Russia, it was like, okay, now China is the next big threat, and it labeled China and it labeled North Korea, and it may have said somebody else, but it was mostly China and North Korea that were added, at least in a significant way, which then really, PO'd China. They're like, hey, why are you calling us out on this? And now pointing your defense, your nuclear capabilities at us.
Well, it seems like obviously they're the ones that are doing sort of the most. But then you think about JB and his administration doing this. What's fishy here? First of all, we've seen that people in our own setup here, in our own gov, that have made a lot of decisions, who have made a lot of moves that it really seems like they're either getting a paycheck or something, or that they're trying to turn a blind eye to the actions of China. I think both are true. I think we have people that are in our gov that legitly see the actual threat. They make a big fuss because of how our system is set up with the three branches and there is checks and balances and things like that. They can get that out. But if you have control over the balances, then you can basically silence it out or quiet it. My meaning is that there are good people that can point out, so you can actually get white papers and Pentagon things that actually say, this is the real threat, this is what's happening. And then you also then get the minimization of it from the other side, somebody who's probably, in my opinion, on a payroll somewhere, or just randomly got a $2 million stipend somewhere in the Cayman Islands. Those kind of things are happening as well. So you have us fighting us, and it's really eye-opening to look at how much that must be happening with what is happening right now with everything. With our culture, with the split, with how our Constitution and everything is really about to take kind of the back burner to this new worldwide kind of movement that is happening. And that's happening because of a group of very, very small group of people that are, in my opinion, really running the show. Because the Prez is not actually in charge. I don't think any president actually is. I don't know, though. Do you ever wonder if Xi is actually in charge, or who do you think he answers to? I bet he answers to Chinese oligarchs or family or ancestors or somebody, a line of people that we don't know about, kind of the equivalent of the Roths or the other folks to be not named. Not even the rocks colored black. We're talking about the people that own the rock colored black. It's really crazy to think about. And then Taiwan military says China lacks ability to invade, but has other options. Of course, we have China lacks the ability to fully invade Taiwan, as it does not have the equipment, but is bringing online advanced new weapons and has other options to threaten Taiwan, such as inspecting foreign cargo ships, the island's defense ministry said. Of course, it says China, which views democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory, has ramped up military and political pressure over the last 5 years to assert its claims. China has never renounced the use of using force to bring Taiwan under its control. The government of the defeated Republic of China fled to Taiwan in 1949 after losing a civil conflict with Mao Zedong's communists. And no peace treaty or armistice was ever signed. So there is nothing on paper saying that anything is official. Sort of like how North Korea, there's nothing really there to say, they're not still at war. In an annual threat assessment of China sent to lawmakers on Friday, a copy of which was reviewed by Reuters, Taiwan's defense ministry said Beijing continues to hone skills such as joint command operations. Quote, however, the use of tactics and strategies against Taiwan is still limited by the natural geographical environment of the Taiwan Strait and insufficient landing equipment and logistic capabilities. It says China is not yet fully possessed the formal combat capabilities and comprehensive invasion of Taiwan. I think that this is absolute BS. I was covering this 5 or 6 years ago. If you don't remember, they actually made a law or a bill in China that all commercial vehicles, including cruise ships, including cargo ships, and including civilian ferries, would all be built in that day forward with the ability to be used as a military vehicle. For instance, the civilian ferries, instead of having a normal ramp that would drop down for a dock, it would have a 160-foot ramp that would be able to drop down on beaches. The same goes for cruise ships and all of these other things. They had to make the ramps not able just to hold trucks and cars, but tanks. I think that they have a secret kind of thing that's here that's really not even secret. They told us. They showed us that they were doing this. There's videos. There's actual proof that not only have they been doing this, but they have been getting all of this stuff ready. Now, as far as if those ferries and cruise ships, and I believe the cruise ships probably could, but if the ferries or the cargo ships or some of this other stuff or some of the smaller boats could actually get to the U.S., that's one thing. But to get 125 miles over to Taiwan, I don't think that that's going to be an issue. Dex, do you get what I mean? Like they're saying that their one problem, and I keep hearing this from even people in chat and people that say, oh, well, they don't have the ability to. They don't have enough of the logistics. I've heard this. So I feel like this is an angle that's been coming out the last month.
Well, a part of it is I say, let's look at who's saying it. It's the defense ministry. It's his job to act as if they're strong. So would he have come out and said, no, at this time, we're kind of worried because we think China can just take us over in 30 minutes. I don't know if he would actually make that public statement. He would probably make the statement that he made to sort of, I guess, at least give off the impression that they are strong or give off the impression that they have got, some sense of capability to defend. But I totally agree with your assessment because when I read this, the first thing I thought in my mind is, yeah, he's just saying this because he's got to. They're not ready to defend that. I don't think they can. I think China could steamroll in there in about 30 minutes, as a lot of other experts have said, and it would be on really quick. They would be on land and they would be taking over quite a bit in a short amount of time.
Here is an image. I'll show you right here. This is a civilian ferry unloading a tank. They didn't just like turn a couple of these into it. They made actual changes to their system to where if you were a commercial company that was making ferries and you got government contracts, they said, oh, by the way, no, you can't just make those for people. You've got to make those for military. And there's a million different examples of this. They're using cruise ships. Again, look at the drop ship type thing on all sorts of other ships. All of these have the ability to take military equipment. What other countries are doing that? I don't. Well, Iran, I know, turns cargo ships into carriers, right? But what other countries do you see doing stuff like that? And setting up full-size replicas of U.S. Carriers in the desert and destroying them. It's like, you think that this isn't for a reason? You're smoking. You're smoking. Smoking the crack. I added echo for extra. Just to be extra. That's all. And next, let's talk about the West Coast. This is, and I know I'll go on for hours if you get me going, but we just had Japan talk about a mega quake warning. This verifies what I've actually been saying. But do you want to go over what they're saying about the West Coast?
Yeah, certainly. So I guess they talk about the Cascadia subduction zone, which we've talked about in length. I think anybody that's been here knows what you've had to say about it, and the fact that it, will produce a 9+ earthquake, huge tsunami. It's a 600-mile long zone from the southern coast of British Columbia down to the northern California, all the way through Washington, Oregon, et cetera. But what they're saying is a newly published study using advanced geophysics instruments has provided a comprehensive survey of the complex structures beneath the seafloor, revealing that the mega thrust fault zone is actually divided into at least 4 segments. The segmentation could influence the scale of future earthquakes, with some of the segments potentially rupturing independently. There's one segment for Vancouver/Washington that was identified as potentially the most dangerous due to its smooth subterranean topography, which could allow a rupture along its entire length. Additionally, a subduction angle here means that earthquake-prone interface might extend directly under Washington's Olympic Peninsula, potentially increasing shaking in cities from Tacoma to Seattle, etc. So in a nutshell, for most people, it just means that there's a great level of earthquakes that can happen in the Pacific Northwest. And if you didn't know that, it's not surprising you didn't know that, because most people didn't. And it's sort of more modern or more recent news over the last 4 to 8 years that people have started to pay attention to what the potential is for this impact, but they continue to study it. And I guess that's the good thing, is the more we put eyeballs on it and try to understand, hopefully the better we can be prepared, whether it's creating tsunami towers, improving infrastructure, improving buildings to withstand what may be coming. But if the big one actually hits, I don't think, there's a lot of people are going to be in a lot of trouble when that happens.
I also want to warn you guys, I will be taking, I'll be on the road. I'll most likely be doing cell phone videos here in the near future too. I just went on the road. I did several things while doing so. Part of it is, this is actually my side passion. As far as I've been working on something for years on this. Now, many more people know than when I started this. But again, nothing has been done. And one thing that I think I'll be able to show is the absolutely alarming lack of anything being done in some of these places. Westport and Ocean Shores are 2 places in Washington, and especially if they're saying that this is broken up into 4 segments, say that segment goes off. We're talking about waves in places up over 125 feet high. We know this because in Moclips, Washington, there is a military base that was the evacuation point for the actual town. This was on a limestone cliff 120 feet high. They said that they are no longer having that as the evacuation point, and that is because They now have new information saying that the information would go higher than that. At the time that I reported this was not public, and I believe, the first one to publicly say that. Then it later came out, they had studies saying that it could be, and this is because of the jetty or the natural kind of lip that is by that area, that essentially when the tsunami hits, it's going to then launch and then hit over that. I don't think it will be 130 feet or 125 feet everywhere, but in certain places in Washington, it will. And there may be other jetties or natural structures under the water that will do this in other places. This is going to be something that's going to shock people to their core, because as you know, Japan, of course, everybody remembers where they were when they saw that footage of, almost huge, giant, almost cruise ship sized boats, something straight out of an end of the world movie, basically coming ashore and bashing into buildings like it was nothing. And it just kept coming. It was such a kind of burned in experience for most people. It doesn't matter where you were, you remembered it. That is in one of the most prepared places in the world. Whereas experts like Chris Goldfinger have said that Seattle and places like Portland, they on a scale from 1 to 10 of how prepared they were as of 3 years ago, they weren't even at a 1 in their opinion. Now, Chris Goldfinger actually spends time off of the coast. He's in scientific boats actually doing samples and drilling and diving and doing all of this stuff. He has not changed his opinion. He has actually doubled down on it. So he has a Netflix, a TED Talk that you guys should go watch. I always forget the name because it's long. It's like 9.0 earthquakes, toast and something else, because of the comments about, of course, the FEMA director saying that everything west of I-5 will be toast. Imagine in places like Portland where you're going to have all of the bridges down. You're not going to have, you have highways that go north and south, and one overpass is going to stop all of that. You have places like Washington that have FEMA Region 10. I just got updates. I went to FEMA Region 10 a few weeks ago, and you can see that. Locals are saying that they are loading up supplies like they've never seen before. And this is something that I actually feel good about, because before, the security guard at the Region 10 said that he goes, look, we don't have anything here. And thinking back on that, I really wonder if there is much more secret than we know, because now finding out that same Region 10 facility that's been having all of these drills, communications drills, having Chinook helicopters drop and do all of these crazy things in that small suburban neighborhood, that's an ex-missile silo that might go as deep as 50 stories deep. So maybe they do have supplies. I sure hope that the countless trucks and the endless line of trucks that has been going in there is preparing for something like this. So I'm not scared by the fact that they're drilling. I'm actually much relieved to see that. But another comment that he said is that we will not have enough supplies here. We will have to have. It will be absolutely necessary to have outside of state help. So with this project, like, this is something that one of the main things was that nobody knew about it. The police, I just checked as of just a few weeks ago, Ocean Shores Police still do not have a plan that all of the officers know. I don't know how many police officers at the time. There was 5. But they didn't even know. 2 years into service, one of the police officers did not know what Cascadia was, what the big one was, what the 9.0, what the tsunami was. And he was working in a city that will be 30 feet underwater. Like the very top point, the highest point in that city will be 30 feet under where you will be able to get sunlight. So everyone there is gone. With some summers, they have stated that up to 500,000 people can be there in a tourist season at one time. So you're saying all the hotels are full, all the bed and breakfast, all the of course, Airbnbs, totally full to the brim, that sometimes they have gotten as high as 500,000 people in a city with one road going out, one road going in. And it's a 2-lane, one each way. Even if it's turned to 2 lanes going out, it takes 30 minutes to get out. It takes 15 minutes for the tsunami to get there. And not to mention, they just put in a salmon trip right now. And I don't know if it's done right now. I think it was a month-long project. They closed down 2 parts of I-109. And this is insane to me, to put a salmon, basically a salmon tunnel under the road. They closed down one of the main roads. So if you were like by Sunrise or something like that, you would have to drive 30 minutes out of your way to get around. If you're in the wrong spot, you have to drive to Ocean Shores, then drive out. That's insanity to me. That shows me that they don't give a crap and they don't think of the future. They do not prepare. All of the brick buildings that still have not been retrofitted will be dust. The stuff that will go into the environment when this happens, compared to Japan, one of the most prepared places in the world that thought of the future, that built everything to code to 8.4, we're screwed. And I feel bad for everybody on the coast, especially those people in the towns that were already hit by all of the logging companies and everything else that left, now are going to be hit with a devastating event. And I think it will be sooner than later. All right. And then before we talk about the Pentagon approves additional support, this is civil conflict preparation. I want to point out, make sure to go check out marfooglenews.com/EMP. If you don't have EMP protection, this is a device that also protects you against a Carrington level event from the sun. It takes 10 minutes to put in your car and you'll be able to actually get home to your family. So everybody that's here, you hear this every night. But if you have been waiting, again, I would consider this. This thing is going to allow you to travel. It's going to allow your generators to work. It's going to allow every device in your home to be protected if you get the home version. That way, if either one of these major events happen, or even a third, in the case of the home version, it protects against lightning, that all of your stuff will still work. Maybe the power doesn't come on for 2 years, but that means you can still have your devices unfried and plug them into a generator. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF. It takes 10 minutes to put in. Again, I'm not joking about that. You don't have to be a mechanic. Red to red on your battery, black to black on your battery, and green wire to a part of your chassis, bolted into the part of your chassis there, and you're done. Then your car is going to run through multiple EMP strikes or a CME from the sun or a Carrington level event. Same companies doing DHS contracts and things like this. You've got DOD. You've got DEMSO team. Actually, is now EMP is officially on the DEMSO team. So again, these guys are helping the government protect themselves. Why aren't we protecting us? If they're doing it, we should be doing it too. So with this, some stated, you could read between the lines. I don't think you have to read between the lines at all. And Dex, you actually have an extra point. You said off air, which I wanted you to say. But first off, the Pentagon is essentially approving additional military supplies in various places all over the country for the Pick the Prez Day. And this is military, U.S. military, basically under the guise of Secret Service being put all over the country. And nobody's going to get any information on what this is all about. It's very vague, it's very secretive, and it's saying that it's because of the current climate and all of this, but it's really not saying much. Dex, do you want to say what you said off air?
It is so easy for most people to just skim over this. Even the author of it in his headline just sort of said, it's just, what you see at the campaign trail, right? But what the spokesperson said, it was during the selection. It was during that day. That day, if you think about it, why would U.S. Northern Command have to plan and provide support to Secret Service across various locations on that day when there are typically zero activities for anybody that's in that, whether it be the existing administration or a candidate that's running? They typically go to their polling location and they do their, drop their thing in the box, and then they go back to their headquarters and they watch the big monitors and they have their big party. They're not out anywhere. So this may, and by the way, what can be happening with the Secret Service here, it could actually be a way to not let the public know what may be deploying. And I don't know. Let's just pay attention. That's what I suggest we do here, because this could be the way to get troops deployed out into various locations, especially the hot spot locations that are going to potentially turn into trouble on that specific day. And maybe that's what they're doing here, but they're just doing it under this guise of, oh well, it's during the campaign. They like you all saw when the former pres got his ear smacked. Right after that, you saw this whole mini battalion of men come running out from behind the scenes, and that's normal, 20, 30, 40 guys. But for the military to be adding a little bit more to that, it wouldn't be big news.
We don't know if it's a little bit
bigger, and we don't know. And why would they be making a big press statement about this? Why would they be doing this? And they're pushing the U.S. Northern Command to plan and provide support for locations during the selection.
And because it is Secret Service, they don't have to declare numbers. They don't have to declare locations. They don't have to declare anything. These are troops that are put in place. I mean, you saw the single file line of military, like Dex said, after he got taken out. That wasn't a fire station that was responding. That wasn't like there's just a random military places around the country that just 6 guys pop out in full on, gear. That is something that is pre-planned in case of emergencies that they keep on the low during most former president or current presidential speeches and things like that. You're talking about Secret Service under the guise of that being completely able. They could deploy 15,000 troops to one location, and they don't have to declare that because they're basically saying, hey, we're going to do this. They've got approval from the Pentagon. This is all over the board, but all of the rest is secret. Hence, Secret Service. So what are they preparing for? When you think about what could happen on that day, Dex and I were talking about this before the show. It's like you could have people on one side of the aisle literally go to these locations where people are dropping it in the box and say, we're going to be here and we're going to make sure nobody that shouldn't be dropping something in the box is dropping. You could then have clashes. I don't know, something that might look like what's happening over in the UK, only in different kind of ways. Meanwhile, in the last 4 years, and it's kind of specifically really ramped up in the last 4, is this divide, this young versus old, this color versus that color, this side versus that side. I mean, it's every bit of our society is now divided, and we're not alone. The scariest part about all of this is happening on a global level. You look at any country in the Western countries, it's happening in every one of them. Everybody's putting up barbed wire fences. Everybody's putting up dragon's teeth. Everybody's involved in war right now. Everybody's just humming with the military-industrial complex. And everybody is having their own culture conflict inside their country. Name a country, I guarantee you the same thing is happening. It's broken to this side versus that side. And when you really think about it, you think, oh, these are so much different places. But all of these places around the world, if you look at Australia, look at Sky News versus, BBC News Australia. It's like you've got that same makeup. This side versus that side. You look at France. You've got these guys versus that guy. You've got the guys driving the tractors through McDonald's versus these guys that are literally, It's unbelievable how it doesn't matter what language they speak. After CV, what really is crazy to me is almost every place is having the same issues. Power outages, hacks, cultural divides, division, of course, politically. And they are all unhappy with the people that are running the show. They also have in common the same media companies. All of these medias, if it's Canada, Australia, this place, that they all have everything go up to this pyramid of a very small handful of companies that own all of the global media. And since the internet has prevailed, internet has made everything so they can push a message out to the entire world in 50,000 different languages, and they can put the same message across. I mean, it is quite crazy if you thought about what they could have done in World War II, what Germany could have done with the internet. Some people say that we're kind of seeing examples of what could be done, right? So make sure to go watch our short video on that. Share that with friends and family if you can. That's really important. And again, keep your head on a swivel. Right now in Colorado, there are at least 3 complexes that were just taken over. Is that going to be the last? Is this going to be the only country that's having it? Yet we absolutely know that there's thousands and thousands of members coming over. The numbers that they say in total of that gang, I think are total, underestimates. But at the very least, you're talking about general people from there. People are seeing it all over the country. I have personally seen it just in the last week. And we've got emails from Fugel family members saying all of a sudden, Walmart parking lots, you're seeing these little stations set up, businesses selling fruits and doing all of these kind of permitless kind of stores. These are people that would normally be in Venezuela in kind of a touristy town selling these things to tourists. They are now here. They have left. They didn't want to deal with Maduro, or they were sent by. I don't know. Whichever is happening, we know where all of these millions have ended up. So I really hope that this ends up getting fixed. Now it's on the docket. But for the next 2 months, people really should be looking at like what you have, what your abilities are as far as like what can you do, and have a basic plan. It's just responsible. It's not crazy. Don't sell your house and go live in a tunnel, but certainly look at where your house is and where you might need to meet family. Have a backup place. Have a third backup place. Hey, can we get to this place without overpasses? Can we get to this place, is there water in between? Think about these kind of things. Can we take the power lines to meet families? Things like that. Is there any trails? Get your trail maps. There's so much stuff on the internet that you can get right now, and that if our internet goes down, you won't be able to get. You can print it. You can save it. You can put protected devices in Faraday bags. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. So inquiring minds, why no call-ins anymore? Inquiring minds, call-ins will come back, but one thing that happened, especially over the last year, it just got too crazy. We have not gotten rid of it, and most likely what we will be doing is call-in Fridays or a Freaky Fridays. But again, we're working on that. We're going to probably continue some form of the call-ins after this Pick the Prez Day, because right now what is happening is they're looking for any good excuse to get to basically boot. So again, inquiring minds, appreciate that. Thank you. UFO Disclosure TV, thank you so much for your support, and I hope that you got some new people over at your channel. I really thought you did a great job on that video. Obviously, you're doing what you need to be doing. I would put out 50 more of those, and again, I think you'll be good in no time. Old combat vet, ancient aristocratic bloodlines rule our world with an astronomical wealth it has accumulated over hundreds of years, and their hundreds of millions hidden hand devils. I want to point out something. People look at like the Forbes list of who's the richest. The richest people are not on a Forbes list. Not to mention, you look at the families and you could look at any one member and say, oh, they're not the richest person in the world. The families that were in charge, the families that owned the banks and all of this stuff, they spread out their money. They gave it to different family members. There's also such a thing as the Cayman Islands. There's also such a thing as Swiss bank accounts. There's so many different ways that the very, very rich elite can basically hide money that I guarantee you there's multiple trillionaires, and they're all parts of the same families. Collective wealth, if you took all of the Childs and all of the, of course, the other families, the fellas and all of these, I bet you they have more money than the top 1%. I believe that they probably have more money in one account than probably the entire world. But that's just what I think. Conquest Josh says, God bless you, Marf. Hope you're doing well, brother. Thank you for everything you do. Conquest Josh, thank you for doing what you're doing. I'll have to get filled in. And then I was surprised to hear again that Ann Lynn and something was going on there. I hope Ann Lynn and Ann and Lynn are doing good. I hope you guys are all good. And then Sweating Ministry says, talked with customer who is a vet. We both, being vets, agree if our enemies will do anything, it will be before or during the Pick the Prez Day. I agree. 100%. You guys, again, thank you for joining us tonight. Make sure to, of course, watch our other video. Dex, thank you so much for your service today.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Make sure to go and watch that short video. If you want to get there, if you're watching the replay, it's really easy to get to. Just click here. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
You can take the highway. It's Good Times Friday. It's Marfoogle Friday. If you ain't having good times, then you can take the highway. It's Good Times Friday. It's